so much for joining me, Andrew. I just wanted to talk to you a bit about the Qatar World Cup before we get into the podcast proper, because we did record some interesting discussion about it that we unfortunately lost. I can't believe I'm asking this question ahead of a World Cup. Are you going to watch it?
I still don't know. I said when we did our first chat that I didn't know. It's been a few days. I still don't know. It's but I'm very just not excited by it at all. And like, I think I'm more of a club man anyway. I kind of get swept up by World Cup Euros when it comes around, and there is no fever. We are ironically in a post-COVID age, fever free. There is no excitement, and I'm not sure I'm bothered about watching it at all. Obviously, the human rights and the LGBT treatment does factor into how I feel about it. I also think that factors into why there's no fever at the moment. Yeah, I don't know if I just don't think I care.
It is a weird one, particularly the World Cup fever element. I just think media outlets are absolutely terrified to mention Qatar. I think they don't want to mention. It's very much, and I suppose they can't really help it. It's not them at blame here, because someone has to show it. I mean, the real blame is at FIFA's door, isn't it? It shouldn't be on anyone else to make a moral stance, really. And I know that friends of mine are boycotting it and aren't watching it on moral stances. And I was a bit sort of torn in that regard, because I wasn't sure whether I should not watch it because I'm a gay man. But then it sort of felt a bit like Qatar was stealing the World Cup from me. And I feel it's one of my favourite sporting events, the World Cup. So it just felt a bit like they were stealing. So on a point of principle, I thought I'll go the other direction and watch it and do coverage on it.
Yeah.
To sort of show more, to focus on the football side of things. Obviously to talk about the human rights issues, but the football side of things. How do you think sort of straight pundits are handling, and also athletes are handling, the World Cup in Qatar so far?
I mean, from an English point of view, not very well. I don't think they don't know what to do. They're very, very kind of sort of panicked vibe, as you say. I think people are very scared to mention it. And I know, like, they flew out on a plane that's called the Rainbow. I'm like, what do you fucking do? Right? Who cares? So I don't know. I feel like they're not activists, they're footballers. And I don't know whether it should be on them to. I don't know. They're not doing a very good job of it at the moment. They're kind of just scared and bumbling out excuses, like Gary Neville on Have I Got News for You, being like, "Oh well, I can expose the stuff whilst I'm out there," and Ian is not very rightly says, like, well, you can't. You know, when you're there for commentating, you've got a job to do, and it would be really weird if you kept bringing up human rights abuses in the middle of commentary, and it wouldn't actually do that much good. It would be, you just get a lot of people sounding off about how annoyed they are about hearing about it. They'd be angry more at LGBT activists than they are at Qatar, which is a very common thing that happens when there's ever sort of any inconvenient backlash about something. Everyone's more annoyed about the correct cause. I say correct, I assume that we all think that is morally correct, but yeah, the people get more annoyed about the cause than the actual problems that have caused the cause. Yeah, so I don't know. They're not handling it very well at the moment. I think that's another reason why the fever's not there. Like, nobody's able to build excitement because they're all kind of stumbling to make sure that they seem morally correct, but also they don't know how to seem morally correct because they don't know what. Yeah, it's all a mess. It's just such a fucking mess.
It is a mess. I mean, I've a couple of friends have gone out there already, and the living conditions there, in terms of so he's gone out to sort of help with some press side of things. The pictures he sent through, it's an absolute shambles. Is there an argument also, just on the note of exposure? I would say that apart from when Newcastle took over, the takeover of Newcastle, the Saudi Arabian takeover, this is the most I've heard about LGBTQ plus issues in locations where it's illegal in a long time.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Malaysia and countries like that, where it's illegal to be gay there, I don't think it's punishable by the death penalty there. I think that's the other bit that makes it so unpalatable in Qatar, is just the extremity of the penalty. But we are hearing about that a lot. So are the media actually doing their job on that, or is it still going to? Is there still that unease? Because I don't know the answer to this question. Because I think it's kind of, from my perspective, it's kind of doing both. We are hearing more about the human rights records, but we aren't. There's nothing is going to happen because of it. Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Well, I wouldn't put that on the media, to be honest. I think that's been maybe social media for sure. Like people like Joe Lycett doing big kind of videos about it, and people with platforms are talking about it quite a lot. I wouldn't say I've seen a lot about it in the news. I think they've I don't know. I think that's more kind of individual activist led in terms of getting that out there. So are the media doing their job? Yes. I mean, if their job is just to report the news, if it's to raise awareness about issues like that, I don't think they're spearheading that side of things. But yeah, I mean, it has raised awareness. I don't know if this is the best way to raise awareness. If we just give World Cup rights to whoever we need to shine a spotlight on, you know. I don't know if that's quite.
I feel like giving a country millions of pounds and sort of and David Beckham, giving a whole country David Beckham. I don't think that is the right way of sort of shining a light on the issues. Maybe we should just talk about it in general. Maybe it doesn't need to be around a sporting event that they've paid off someone. Even if it's Sepp Blatter saying this is a bad idea. That is a bad idea. Like that should be a wake up call to everyone on Earth. If one of the most corrupt men on Earth, who was a big part of it, has come back and gone. I think his grounds are a bit weird though. It was a bit like, well, it's just too small a country. I'm not sure how much human rights played a part in his sort of response to that.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very small country. I didn't realize quite how. Somebody put it on a map over the UK, and it kind of stretched over Leeds, Huddersfield, and Burnley a little bit. And I was thinking, well, even in the UK, where we're arguably the biggest footballing nation in the world. Arguably, I'm sure people disagree.
No, we definitely are, and if they do disagree, they're incorrect.
Even in that little in the bit of the UK that they'd imposed the Qatar over, I couldn't name enough stadiums to maintain a World Cup, and we've got one of the biggest footballing cultures in the world. So how Qatar, which doesn't have a footballing culture, has ended up with this is entirely incorrect. I also think that's very cowardly from Sepp Blatter to have been so involved with everything, and then before the stadium starts, he's trying to wash his hands of it. Like I don't accept his sort of resignation from responsibility, which is what he seems to be doing, and saying Qatar's a bad idea before it started because it was his idea.
I mean, I can't not bring up Hugo Lloris now, because we're talking about players who are role models to millions of people, particularly English players, but also players that play in the Premier League. I mean, there are loads of Spurs fans, and particularly Spurs has an amazing LGBT fan group. They've got a really solid. It must be a gut punch when your goalkeeper pretty much turns a blind eye and sort of follows that line of you've got to respect their culture, which I have a real problem with, because I was listening to the Athletic podcast. I can't remember who it was, but someone said it, something really, really struck home with me, that I am not a culture. As a gay man, I'm not a culture. I'm just a guy who likes fucking men. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I hate being described as political. I hate all of that stuff. Like, I find that so frustrating. And it's funny because straight people don't, when they're having sex, it's not political, is it?
Yeah.
It's not political. It's only our sex lives that's political. I find that really odd.
Well, I don't know about you, but my sex life is very political. We do role play as various ministers and politicians over the years. But yeah, it is weird. The cultural point is so weird because it's only ever like LGBT like affection and self-expression and stuff like that needs to be put a lid on, or people need to be like, well, just respect their culture, despite the fact that like Islamic culture is also against gambling, against alcohol, and yet alcohol and gambling is going to be some of the biggest sponsors out there and some of the kind of biggest profit makers from events like the World Cup. And they're not being like, oh, well, we should stop gambling and drinking because it's an Islamic country, because they don't care about the culture. They just don't want to come. And Hugo Lloris, I think, is being very cowardly. He doesn't want to come down in supporting LGBT rights. That's it. He just doesn't want to. Doesn't want the fight. He doesn't want the hassle. Obviously, he's going to end up with more hassle because of the backlash about it. But he'd rather hedge his bets and say something pathetic like, "Oh, I just want to respect the culture," so that he doesn't seem homophobic, but also he doesn't have to support gay rights. And I think it's cowardly. I don't think it's a good excuse at all.
I wonder if he's sponsored by sort of a Saudi Arabian or Qatari or Middle Eastern or a place where it's illegal to be gay, sponsored by someone who works there, particularly Thailand. That's another country that people don't realize have quite hostile views on LGBTQ plus people.
He's coming to the end of the career. He could end up in the Middle East next. Goodness knows, MLS or Middle East or the Chinese Super League is where people like him end up.
It's a nightmare. Either way, I think the World Cup, I think it will be good. Not the World Cup, as in where it is, or anything to do with Qatar or FIFA. But I am excited about the teams involved. I'm really excited about Wales this year. I'm so excited about a team of Wales, sort of talking of small countries. Wales are tiny. They are literally a thumbnail of a country on a world. It's so exciting to see. And also I hate saying this, they have the best fans, don't they? They have a song. They have a proper full song that they all sing in Welsh. And they've got their own language that they haven't forced on an empire to speak. Like, I really respect Wales.
Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Wales. I really feel for them that this is their World Cup. And hopefully it's not their last. But I hope it's very disappointing that this is their big World Cup that has been so overshadowed by other stuff, because otherwise, if it wasn't for Qatar, I think they would be the story of the tournament.
Yeah, and you also look at players like James Maddison, their first call up in 3 years, and they're now playing in one of the biggest tournaments in. Well, it's the biggest thing in their careers. These young footballers who are going out there in a country, in a climate where it's so hot and so weird, and there's sort of the whole. It must be unusual. I mean, seeing a player in a Welsh top on the side of a big Qatari building. It's sort of just a sign of what the unusual nature of this World Cup. You've got a massive picture of Gareth Bale on the side of a Qatari building. It just all strikes such a weird chord with me. Not because of Wales being there. It's just like small nation in the most amazing opportunity for a small nation, and it's sort of pinned on the backdrop of such a negative sort of decision that happened years ago. Where's the next one?
I don't know. I was trying to think that the other day. I don't know. I used to be very good for the next sort of World Cups and Olympics. I think the next Olympics is Paris, but other than that, I've lost all track of it. I don't know why. I need to get back on that. I used to be a very keen pub quizzer. And those are all things that used to pop up all the time. But I need to get back into pub quizzing, as well as various other activities that I've let slip over the years.
The world of being a stand-up comic, isn't it? Essentially, when you're a stand-up comic, almost all of your life is on pause for 7 years. That's what it's felt like for me, anyway. Anyway, that's a different thing. But you do sort of the things that you once enjoyed, you don't do as much of anymore. I'm rubbish at pub quizzes. I've only got like niche sport knowledge, niche music knowledge, and flags. That's literally all I've got. I don't know anything about actors. I don't know anything about films. I'm rubbish at general knowledge. Basically, don't have me in your pub quiz team, Andrew, or you'll be doing a lot of the heavy lifting if we did ever go on a pub. We should go for a pub quiz.
I would quite, you know what, I prefer to do the heavy lifting. I'm very arrogant, sort of selfish pub quizzer. Not that I won't, if someone's come up with the right answers, I'll let them into the fray, but otherwise I'm quite happy to sit there and do a solo pub quiz.
I'll be there for morale. I'll be there for morale and pints.
That is the worst thing about a solo pub quiz is there's no one there to enjoy it when you get it right. You can't be like, hey, look, I got this right.
I mean, who could we have in our... I want a gay pub quiz team made out of comics. Who else should we involve and what would they be good at?
I mean, ideally, I'd get Paul Sinner involved, but that seems like
cheating. Oh, God, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point, talking of sport fans.
It was a good question. Are we talking, is it a gay male pub quiz team or LGBT?
LGBTQ plus members, regardless of how they identify.
Fantastic. Okay, that's an interesting team to build up. Who do you have anyone in mind?
I don't know. I feel like pop culture knowledge is something I need because I'm rubbish at pop culture. And the good thing about the LGBTQ plus community is that they're great at pop culture. So I'd get Joe Sutherland in immediately.
Joe Sutherland's a great
because
shout,
he is the loveliest man on earth and directed my stand-up show, which is soon to be released. And it's just his knowledge of pop culture. It was so useful building out material with him. But he's also just the loveliest man. I'd have him in.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. I'd love Joe Sutherland along. Catherine Bohart's a very keen.
I was gonna say
quizzer.
Bohart.
She's very competitive.
What's she good at? I can imagine history. I don't know why. She just seems like someone who would know about history.
Yeah, she's pretty good on her history. She's got quite good general knowledge as well. She's I think Catherine, me, Catherine, and Joe Sutherland, that would be a very strong gay comedians pub quiz team.
Let's make it happen. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I am actually going to release this as a separate episode because it's been a longer conversation than I was anticipating, but it's been really, really fun. So I'm going to release this as a separate episode. And you'll have to come back on when we have some more sports to talk about. I'm actually
it'd be lovely.
It would be great. It would be great to have you back on. But until next time, thank you. Thank you for coming on.